Welcome to Catalan News. The Supreme Court is taking over the case against pro-independence leaders from the National Court. This opens the door for the option of release for the 8 ministers and the 2 civil society leaders who are in prison awaiting trial. The Supreme Court has, so far, imposed less severe precautionary measures than the National Court. The judge could now revise their cases and, if freed, many of the jailed politicians will be able to campaign in the December 21st election. Catalan News has been presenting all the parties that will participate, and today we bring you an interview with the Socialist Party. Meanwhile, Puigdemont called on Spanish President Mariano Rajoy to start talks with him in Brussels, but his demands fell on deaf ears. A minister told him that he should appeal for dialogue no longer to Rajoy, but to the party's candidate in Catalonia. Here at Catalan News, we'll give you all the details. Let's begin. Once again, the Catalan president Carles Puigdemont, sacked by the Spanish government, called for dialogue. He did so in an interview with a German radio from Brussels, where he also met with representatives of the pro-independence grassroots organization Òmnium Cultural. The Spanish government, though, stressed that the president Mariano Rajoy is no longer the person he should be speaking to, and urged him to address the People's Party candidate in Catalonia, Xavier García Albiol. Although the campaign has not officially started yet, the atmosphere both in Belgium and in Catalonia is already pretty much as if it had.
Carles Puigdemont and his dismissed ministers got support today from one of the main civil society organisations in Catalonia, Òmnium Cultural. At a meeting in Brussels, members of the organisation, whose own president is in jail in Madrid, said that Puigdemont is the head of the only legitimate government of Catalonia. An Òmnium spokesperson asked all political parties running in the upcoming election to form a democratic bloc against the imprisonments and to keep working towards the creation of a Catalan republic.
El que els demanem és aquest compromís que ja tenen, a que facin aquest bloc democràtic ampli contra el 155, demanant l'alliberament dels presos, exigint a l'Estat que s'aturi la repressió.
Less than a month before the vote, Puigdemont offered Mariano Rajoy to meet him for talks in the European capital. The Spanish government, which considers Puigdemont a fugitive from justice, flatly refused. The Catalan leader will soon start campaigning from Belgium, with a big event expected tomorrow. Also campaigning are the Unionist parties, although not without tensions. The leader of the People's Party in Catalonia asked the other 2 Unionist parties, the Socialists and Ciutadans, to stop their cockfight over who would get the presidency if they beat Puigdemont, and instead to focus on actually winning.
Yo lo que pido tanto a Ciudadanos como al Partido Socialista es un poquito de respeto a los ciudadanos. No se puede estar vendiendo la piel del oso cuando las elecciones ni tan solo se han celebrado.
Between the yes and no blocs, the Catalonia in Comú candidacy today said it will not support any radical option. Also fighting for the middle ground, the Catalan Socialists urged all political parties to back down in order to form a government that reconciles Catalonia and Spain. Even though the Socialists supported the application of Article 155, which suspended Catalonia's self-government, the Socialist Secretary-General put himself forward as the standard-bearer of a third option at a moment of unprecedented political polarisation.
Right now, we can take a closer look at the Catalan Socialists, or PSC, because this is the party that we will interview on today's show. Even though the Socialists are the main opposition party in Spain, they aligned themselves with the People's Party government to respond to Catalonia's push for independence. They voted in favor of Article 155 and the suspension of self-rule. Yet, the leader of the party in Catalonia, Miquel Iceta, labeled the imprisonment of pro-independence leaders as disproportionate. Although they've been one of the most powerful parties in Catalonia for decades, in 2015 they only won 16 seats out of 135. Recent polls suggest that they could surpass Ciutadans as the largest Unionist party, but forming a ruling coalition to defeat pro-independence forces might prove difficult. They're part of the Social Democrats in the European Parliament and reject independence plans, saying that the best solution for Catalonia would be a constitutional reform. We can speak now with Esther Niubó, who was a member of the Parliament for the Socialists before it was dissolved by the Spanish government. Now she is expected to run again as an MP, as she is number 10 in the Barcelona constituency list. Ms. Niubó, good evening.
Good evening.
So what will happen if pro-independence parties win a majority, not only of seats, but also of votes in the next election?
So this is an election to elect a president of the government of the Catalonia, and if they have the majority, they will be legitimate to form this government, but in any case, they will be legitimate to disobey and to break the law. So this is I think this is the situation, because the constitution and the rule of law needs to be obeyed.
Will Article 155 always be the limit for those who want Catalonia to be an independent state?
Well, I think that it's important to think in the rule of law. So if we have a constitution, a Spanish constitution, of course there are forms to reform this constitution, and in this case I think it would be important to make to try to reform this constitution with all the participation of all the political forces in Spain, also in Catalonia, because this would be the common house of the rules. So.
Your party says that a constitutional reform would be the best solution for Catalonia, but how can you argue that this is the preferred option for the Catalan society if a referendum on independence is completely off the table?
Okay, for us it's important to overcome the situation of the division of the Catalan society between two parts. For us, it's not important that the pro-independents are more or less 50% and the other 50%. We need to reach a new agreement, a very social, wide agreement to overcome this situation. So for us, it's not so important to agree a kind of voting, but to vote a new agreement. So this the way for us would be to work all the political parties to reach this new agreement, and then of course it would be the time to vote. And in that case we will see if there was a wide social support to this new agreement, to this new social deal, or if it would be not the case. No? And in that case we would be in another very different political situation.
Do you think that your party has enough things in common with the People's Party, Ciudadans, and even with En Comú Podem in order to be able to rule over Catalonia?
No, I think we are very different parties. In this case, we have said that we don't feel comfortable with parties that are clearly right-wing parties, in the case of PP, but also in the case of Ciudadanos, because if you ask, for example, Aznar, with which leader feels more sure, it's with Rivera, not with Rajoy. So in the case of Ciudadanos and Partido Popular, it's very difficult to reach any kind of agreement apart from that kind of reform of constitution, that we need the participation of all the political parties. And in the case of Comuns, it's true that in the social political policies we are much near, but we need to see which are their clear priorities. So in our case, we think that we need to shift the situation, so the direction of the government has to change. We need to make big and social great agreements, not only to reinforce our dialogue with the rest of Spain, but also to change the political priorities with more social priorities in Catalonia.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Newell.
Thank you very much.
We move now to Madrid, where it was finally announced that what was being hinted at in recent days is true. The case against pro-independence leaders, including imprisonment government members, will be transferred to the Supreme Court. Until now, they were being investigated by a national court judge who sent 10 people to jail as a precautionary measure. Now that the Supreme Court is going to look into the case, there is a chance for their imprisonment to be reassessed.
There are currently 10 pro-independence leaders jailed in Madrid for their role in Catalonia's push for independence. There are 8 Catalan ministers and 2 civil society leaders. All of them, and also President Carles Puigdemont and 4 ministers who accompany him in Brussels, were being investigated by a judge at the Spanish National Court. Until today, the Supreme Court announced that it will take over the case, and this could open the door for a reassessment of the precautionary measures, which means that they could be released. A Supreme Court judge is already investigating Parliament Bureau members who allowed the vote on independence to take place. After looking into the cases being investigated at the National Court, he decided that they were all closely connected and therefore should not be investigated separately. So far, the measures imposed by the Supreme Court have been less severe. The only person who will continue to be tried at the National Court is the former chief of the Catalan police, Josep Lluís Trapero, who was dismissed by the Spanish government after taking over the Catalan executive. Catalan leaders face charges of rebellion, which carry up to 30 years prison sentences. The accusations were filed by the late Attorney General José Manuel Maza, who who passed away last Saturday. Today, the Spanish government nominated a successor, Julián Sánchez Melgar. He is expected to take over Maza's role as the state's leading prosecutor against pro-independent leaders. In the meantime, imprisoned leaders continue to receive support. A group of MEPs from 5 different parties announced that they are planning to visit them in prison.
Support for imprisoned pro-independence leaders also comes from Catalonia's capital, Barcelona. Starting tonight, the fountains of the city will be lit with a color that has come to mean solidarity with the prisoners, yellow. Additionally, the city's Christmas lights were inaugurated with a performance of both healing and hope. The event to kick off the Barcelona Christmas lights was held on the Centro La Rambla, chosen in memory of the victims of the August terror attack. The performance was fraught with meaning. The color white and dove stood for peace, while the percussion represented Barcelona's beating heart. And tonight, imprisoned Catalan leaders are also honored with a very significant color. Since the precautionary incarceration of pro-independent civil society leaders and Catalan government officials, a yellow ribbon has come to mean solidarity with the imprisoned. In their name and in support of their family, around 20 Barcelona fountains will light up in yellow, including the iconic Montjuïc fountain.
Perquè per una banda no volem deixar perdre el Nadal com un moment de retrobament, de tendresa, d'estar en família, de celebració de la vida, però al mateix temps també entenem que hi haurà moltes famílies en una situació difícil, sense les seves persones estimades, per una situació que considerem que és injusta i per tant també era oportú tenir un record a través d'aquesta il·luminació simbòlica.
In Barcelona, 1 in every 3 women will be the victim of gender violence at some point in their lives, and the violence has quadrupled in the last 3 years. To combat this, a self-defense program for the victims of abuse was recently put on by the Atempro program. Run by the Red Cross and the DIR Foundation, Atempro's new pilot program teaches self-defense to a very particular demographic, women who have already suffered abuse. It starts simple by working on emotional strengths and building up self-confidence, then moving on to basic techniques. Indeed, fighting violence against women is more urgent than ever. This year, 4% more women were assisted than in 2016, and the organization noted increasingly younger couples. What's more, they stressed the importance of not only focusing on the attacker himself, but on the damage that could be caused by his friends and family, too. That's all for today. But before we go, we leave you with a very unique rehearsal in Girona. It's for the Song of Love and War, a classic of Catalan zarzuela, which is being brought to theaters after being censored by Franco's dictatorship. We hope you enjoy it, and see you next week.